Alright everyone, welcome to Unit 5, Promote Health and Safety and Welfare in Active Leisure and Recreation. I'm going to try, obviously, go through this at quite a decent speed, because as I say with all these podcasts, you can always stop and rewind if you need to go back. Alright, so Unit 5, obviously we're getting well beyond halfway now with the qualification itself, which is good. There are certain aspects within this unit which are specific to your organisation, which means you're just going to have to ask your line manager and just find out what your specific policies and procedures are for certain health and safety aspects within your company, basically. All right, let's get cracking. So, as we've said, this is promote health and safety and welfare in the active leisure and recreation sector. So the first question there says, give one example of where you would use manufacturers' guidelines and instructions for the use of equipment. All that is, guys, just the instructions for how to set things up and how to put things down. Now, obviously, if you're setting things up like cricket wickets or something like that, you don't need to follow any instructions, okay? They're only small. But when you start to move towards kind of medium size and large equipment, then it's really important that you use the manufacturer's guidelines to make sure that everything's up properly. And to ensure everyone's safety, basically. So things like table tennis tables, they need to be set up properly, otherwise they can fall over and hurt someone. Trampolines, really important, really big piece of equipment which needs to be set up properly. And all that just needs to be done just to make sure that everyone's safe. Okay, so fairly straightforward one, that. Next up, why is health, safety and welfare important in the active leisure and recreation environment? Well, obviously, health and safety is important in any line of business. Okay, the safety of clients and of staff are paramount. Okay, we want to make sure that everyone is safe when they come into your facility, basically. All right. So, secondly, to making sure everyone's safe, you need to make sure that your company is covering all organisational legal requirements, basically. All the legislation that's out there, such as the Health and Safety Act, COSH, all that sort of stuff, you need to make sure that your company is following that. If not, they're liable to be sued and obviously shut down, and people can even have criminal proceedings brought against them, which means obviously you can end up in prison. All right, so it's really important that everybody within the facility and the organisation is following health and safety properly. Okay, first and foremost for staff and client safety. Secondly, to meet legal requirements. All right. Just a reminder, guys, it's inside these boxes. It needs to be written, in full sentences. Okay, I don't just want bullet points. If you just do bullet points, you'll be sent back to you. Okay, so you need to put full sentences. So just form anything that I put in these boxes into full sentences, and there'll be no problem with that. All right, next up, we have who is responsible for health and safety in your organisation. Now, I've put in the box there, you need to seek advice from Joanne, which is obviously your line manager. But basically, guys, the responsibility of health and safety is everybody's. Okay, it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that they're doing their job safely and that other people are doing their job safely. If you have any concerns, it's your legal requirement to report them to your line manager. All right, so the responsibility of health and safety is everybody's. Now, again, here it says list health, safety, and security checks to be carried out in your organisation. Now, that's going to be specific to your location where you are. Okay, so all you need to do is just go and ask your line manager. In this case, I put Joanne. You just need to go and make sure what checks are carried out on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis. Shouldn't take too long. Just like I say, have a quick conversation, get it down in that box. All right, next up, you've got a little table here, and the question states, complete the table below identifying the types of hazards that are likely to occur in your own area of work and the accidents and injuries each could cause. All right. Now, again, guys, this is specific to your facility. All right. So all you need to do is fill in those boxes there that is specific to the work that you do. Okay. If you work, specifically in the pool, again, tailor that towards the pool. If you work in the gym, tailor it towards the gym. Okay. If you work across all sectors, then again, self-explanatory. Use your table for them. All right, so next up, you've got to explain. All right, so all I've done in that box there is just identify. You need to then obviously explain each one of these steps. Okay, so explain the 5 steps of risk assessment. So the 5 main steps are: identify the hazards, okay, decide who may be harmed by these hazards and how. Is it going to be staff? Is it going to be clients? It's going to be both. Assess the risk. So what is the risk of that hazard, causing any sort of harm? Is it low? Is it high? And then you must take action. Obviously, if it's high, what can you do then to minimise the risk to people? You then need to make a record of your findings. So that is just a risk assessment form. Okay, so you write down what you found, and then you can act upon anything that is, either a medium or a high risk. Anything that's low, obviously, isn't really an issue. Just keep your eye on that to make sure it remains low. But anything that's medium or high risk needs to be addressed, because there should be nothing that's high risk within your facility, really. And then obviously things change within organisations, sometimes on a daily basis, definitely on a yearly basis. You need to review the risk assessment if you have some new equipment which comes in, if you have any new staff members. You just need to review the risk assessment to make sure that it's up to date, and it's making sure that everyone is trying to keep the risk down within the facility. Next up, we've got: why is it important to get advice from a relevant colleague if you are unsure about hazards and risks in your workplace? Well, basically, obviously, most people within the sports facility will know who they have to go to get any kind of specialist or specific information. It could be a line manager, duty manager, head of department, anything like that. And that's to ensure that accurate knowledge is passed on. Okay, so you might have a good understanding of health and safety within the pool, but not in the gym. So therefore, you go to a relevant colleague within the gym and ask them, obviously, what are the health and safety procedures within this environment, so that you're aware and that you can stay safe within there. And if you are, for any reason, if you're taking a session in there, you know what you need to do to keep that session safe. All right? If you just follow everything you know from the swimming side, there may be gaps in what you're doing that could put people at risk. All right, so you must always make sure that you've got a relevant colleague who you've asked about the health and safety requirements within a certain area. Okay, next up, we've got described 2 key health and safety documents that are relevant to your organisation. Within the box there, basically, I'm not giving you the answer, but you can expand upon this. The most important piece of health and safety legislation affecting fitness establishments across the UK are the Health and Safety at Work Act, 1974, and the Management of Health and Safety at Work Regulations, 1999. Okay, if you research those guys and just develop your answer a little bit from there. Again, I am giving you guidance here, but you are supposed to go away, and really cement your knowledge by doing a bit of research as well around the topic. Okay, just to remind you as well, if you need any extra help, do get in contact with me via email or phone, and I will try and help you as soon as possible. So next up, the box is missing off here, it's underneath. So it states: outline how to complete health and safety documentation properly. Okay. So this could be anything like an incident report form, accident report form, policies and procedures, anything like that. But all documentation should be filled out in a clear manner and also a formal manner. All right. So written formally and professionally, not using any slang or jargon. Relevant staff names should be included. For example, if you're doing an accident report form, times, the circumstances of what happened, and the people involved should be logged. All right, so everything should be logged. And the text that you write, and this is over any kind of documentation within the workplace, should include only facts and no opinion. All right, so it shouldn't be the opinion of why you think something happened or why someone did something. It should be just the pure facts of what actually happened and why they actually happened. Okay. Next up, we've got: why should colleagues and customers be encouraged to behave in a safe manner? Now, obviously, that's, again, I hope that seems like a daft question to anyone who's reading that. All right. Obviously, everyone should be staying and behaving in a safe manner at all times. Okay, which means obviously not messing about on machinery and basically just doing your job competently and properly. And that's there. You're supposed to do that obviously to promote a safe working environment, and which will then ensure the safety of clients and staff on the premises. We all want to go to work and come back home at the end of the day, as do all our clients that we work with. They want to come in, do their session, do their fitness regime and go home after it feeling better and feeling like they've been in a safe environment. And if everyone's doing their job properly and safely, then that should happen. Okay, next up we have, why is it important to identify and report differences between health and safety requirements and own workplace policies and procedures? Now what that means is, obviously there are requirements that are handed down from government, which are in the legislation such as the Health and Safety Act, and then workplaces are supposed to come up with their own policies and procedures to make sure that they cover all those requirements. Now sometimes it could be because an act has been updated or some new legislation has come into place. Policies will need to be updated. Okay, if they're not updated, then gaps can occur, and then obviously risks to people and staff. Risk to staff and clients can then increase. Okay, so if there are these gaps, policies need to be updated. If this is the case, then this normally gets addressed at kind of staff meetings where people will go over obviously things that they feel need to be updated within the policies, okay, to make sure that all requirements are met basically. Okay, an easy way of doing that is getting up the new legislation, your work policies, and comparing the two and making sure that everything in there is the way it should be. That is really the remit of the line manager. But if you notice, as I said before, it's health and safety on site is responsibility of everyone. If you notice within the policies and procedures that there are some glaring errors, then obviously it's your responsibility to then report that back onto the line manager, who can then update policies and update all staff. Okay? Again, guys, a lot is common sense. So how would you report these differences if you did find them? Again, you just go straight to your line manager or your supervisor or your duty manager to make sure that they, them pass on the message, or they might be the person that updates it themselves. And then obviously it's just worth, checking again maybe in a week's time to see if any updates have been made. If not, again, maybe just go and contact your supervisor. If you contacted your supervisor last time, I'd go directly to your line manager just to make sure that these health and safety procedures are put in place. Next up, we have give one example of safeguarding and welfare. Give one example of safeguarding the welfare of children and vulnerable adults. So obviously children and vulnerable adults are people that, can't look after themselves, maybe, okay, and need that extra support from people around them, maybe carers sometimes, but when they're in your facility, that also obviously encompasses you as well, okay? You're there to help people that can't help themselves, basically. And these people such as children or vulnerable adults, it could be people with learning difficulties or disabilities, they need full supervision at all time. Now, that might not mean walking around, side by side, but for example, if they're in the pool, to make sure that, lifeguards are always aware that they need to be just keeping an eye on these vulnerable individuals, more so maybe than usual. Again, any sort of staff within the gym environment or any other environment within the fitness industry just need to make sure that full supervision is being upheld, basically. Don't let kids go into changing rooms on their own. Don't leave, obviously, vulnerable adults in a swimming pool on their own. Not that anyone would do that, but again, these are just examples. And the needs of the people must be accommodated as well. So if the vulnerable people are disabled, and let's say, for example, they're in wheelchairs, then obviously consideration needs to be taken for what their needs might be. If they need to go up any stairs, obviously they need to use the lift. People need to assist them as well in that if they require that assistance. Okay. What would be your role and responsibility in relation to safeguarding and protecting children and other vulnerable people? Okay, so you need, basically what your roles are is to ensure that all policies and procedures are followed within your workplace. And this is why it's really important that all staff are familiar with the policies and procedures within the organisation and what their role is when it comes to safeguarding children and vulnerable people. Another major responsibility for all staff is to report any safeguarding issues that you encounter. All right, so example, if you suspect any type of abuse towards these vulnerable people, it could be something as people see as low levels, such as bullying or emotional abuse. Okay, so if someone's always putting someone down within the gym, so like saying, "Oh, come on, you're no good at this," put some more effort in, and the person is obviously trying the hardest, that needs to be reported, because that is a form of abuse, basically. And it's on everybody to report these sort of safeguarding issues, basically. So next up, we have got complete the table below by listing the 4 recognised forms of abuse and the signs and symptoms of the abuse that can be identified. Now, I've given you the forms of abuse because I'm lovely. Okay. Well, what you need to do is go away and research what the signs and symptoms of the abuse are. Okay. So what signs are there for physical abuse? What signs are there for emotional, sexual abuse, and then neglect as well? Okay. They're the 4 main types of abuse which you could come into contact with. And it's something that's really important. It's something that you should be conscious of, because the odds are, the amount of people that you get going through your doors, unfortunately, I would say a small percentage of them will possibly be subject to some form of abuse at some point. And if you can highlight that, if you can identify that and report it, then these people may get the help that they need. Okay, so that's really important, guys. I understand that this is a bit of a dry subject and a bit of a dark subject, but again, it's very important. So next up, we have got describe the risks that involve... Oh, I got it wrong again. What's wrong with today? Describe the risks that individual abusers pose to children and young people. Okay, so if someone's abusing children or vulnerable individuals, okay, they pose they can pose psychological damage which can last for a long time. Okay, and can really form some deep-rooted issues within the people and cause some serious damage. Okay, so it's really important to try and identify this sort of abuse as soon as possible. Again, you've then got the physical abuse as well. So if people are using physical abuse, could be something like flicking, pinching, punching, kicking. There's even obviously forms such as putting cigarettes out on people. If individuals that you come into contact with are not very forthcoming, with showing their arms or their legs, and they always kind of cover up in the gym, where normally you would want to wear something that's quite light and maybe shorts and t-shirt, that would be a red flag straight away that, maybe there could be something untoward going on there. That would be your responsibility to then report that to your line manager or your safeguarding officer. Okay. Another risk as well, it can affect their welfare. If someone's being neglected, it could be a child that's being neglected, so they're not being fed properly, clothed properly. They always seem dirty when they come into your facility. Again, another red flag there. You should really be reporting that straight away to your safeguarding officer. Okay. Right, guys, you've got a scenario here which outlines, obviously, a set of circumstances, and you've got questions underneath which you need to answer. Now, I've not filled in any of the boxes because, again, this is an individual task. All right, so if you just read the scenario there, and if you can fill out, obviously, A, B, C, and D, okay, that is your personal task there, your personal individual task. Okay, again, any issues that you have, give me a call, give me an email if you're not sure what to do on that. Again, guys, you can always seek the advice of your line manager as well. They should be able to help you with all this. Okay, so we've got, what would you do if there were barriers to reporting your concerns about possible abuse? Okay, so let's say you went to your duty manager and you said, look, I think that, I've got suspicions of someone, abusing somebody, and they turn around to you saying, oh, don't be daft, I've known Sharon for years, she won't do anything like that. Okay, that's obviously a barrier that's put in place that's going to stop any of your concerns going any further. Okay, so if that were to happen, or any other kind of barriers that you thought, the message wasn't getting to where it needed to go to, you should either report it to head, or you can report to all these at once at the same time. So to head office of your organisation, social services, directly, they have phone numbers which can be found on their website, the social services website. The relevant governing bodies as well. So I put an example there of the health and safety executive. Let's say, for example, you went to work and you didn't feel safe at work because there was faulty electrics, there wasn't lifeguards on when they're supposed to be on. You should then contact, obviously, all of those people that basically are on that on that page there. Mainly the health and safety executive. Social services wouldn't really apply for that because it's not really a social services case. But yeah, you should. If you feel like there are barriers or someone's not doing their job properly, then you need to go obviously above them and report it to the relevant governing bodies, basically. Okay, so let's complete the table below next. You need to identify 2 statutory agencies responsible for safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. Now, I've given you them. So you've got the Children's Trust and the local safeguarding children's boards. Now, you need to go away again and research those and just put in examples of when it may be necessary to contact the statutory agency. Okay, so what sort of circumstances would you contact the Children's Trust and would you contact the local safeguarding children's boards? Okay, and then next up, again, the square seems to have gone AWOL here, but it says, why is it important to share concerns about possible abuse with others? All right, so again, guys, common sense really prevails here. It's to ensure that the correct authorities are alerted and to ensure that the correct action can be taken. All right, so if you just form these into full sentences, all right, you should have no problem there. Again, that's pretty much, I would hope that was common sense. Okay, another one here for your line manager. It says, give 3 examples of procedures that you would expect to find in your organisation's safeguarding children and vulnerable adults policy. For each policy, explain what this means for your job and your area of work. So what is it? How does it affect you specifically? Those policies that you're going to find out about. What do they state is your responsibility? Okay, your role and responsibility. Okay, so if you go away and find out about those 3 examples and put in how they affect your job in there. Okay, nearly done now, guys. Next up, it says describe 2 procedures that you would follow to protect yourself from accusations of abuse. Okay, so the procedures that you would follow will be, with Joanne. All right, and this should be covered regularly in your staff training, basically. Okay, so if you go away again, ask Joanne about the 2 procedures that you would follow, because these can differ from organisation to organisation. So I don't want to state what these are to you on there and tell you the wrong ones, because you should be working alongside your employer as well on this course. Next up, we have how would you respond to emotional distress of a client? So if a client came to you and they were, they might be crying, they might not be, but they might just think you'd say, I'm really down, or you might suspect that someone's depressed, and then they end up, opening up to you and talking to you. You'd respond obviously by talking to them. A big one as well, which I've not put on there, is listen. The biggest thing you can do, or the biggest help you can be, is just to listen sometimes, so they can tell you absolutely everything. Okay, support them. Tell them that that there are things which can be done to help them. But in order for that to happen, you also need to inform them that you can't keep the conversation. If they state emotional distress, you can't keep it between themselves. You have to inform. I shouldn't say ensure. You have to inform the safeguarding officer. Okay, and even if they're asking you to not to say, even if they're saying please don't tell them, it is your legal requirement to tell your safeguarding officer. Okay, but you really should support them, talk to them, and listen to them. Okay, but then obviously the most important thing is to then report that onto the relevant safeguarding officer that can then take it further and make sure that this person gets the help that they need. Okay, again, we seem to have got detached from box and question. So next up, what procedures should you follow when contacting the emergency services? Okay, so we changed tact a little bit here. So obviously you need to follow your emergency service procedure. You need to stay calm, state the emergency, state the circumstances that you're in. Is it fire? Is it a bomb threat? Is it someone who's injured? You need to talk about any casualties and inform the emergency services whether they're breathing or not. That's a big one, because obviously if you say that they aren't breathing, they'll send an emergency response car to you to get there within a few minutes. Okay, if you don't state that, they may just send a regular ambulance, which could take longer than the emergency response. Okay, and also the time of first sighting of whatever happened, so the time the fire was first seen, or the time that the injured party was first seen as well, guys. Okay, but you should be following your emergency procedures there. What are your responsibilities for reporting accidents? Okay, you need to report them as soon as they occur, and you would report them to, again, your line manager straight away. Okay. So you would make sure that you stopped everything that you were doing. You reported that accident straight away. You would then, well, I'm moving on to the next question here. It says, what procedures should you follow when reporting accidents? So all organisations should have an accident report book. All right. The information that goes in there is things such as the time of the accident, how it occurred, the injuries that resulted from it, and the action that was taken. Such as ringing the emergency services, and then how long they took to get there, and then what happened after that as well. Okay. Again, it's everyone's responsibility to do that. It's not, if you see something, I'll wait till someone else sees it and then they can report it. It's everyone's responsibility to report accidents as soon as they occur. Okay. So this says, complete the table below for a typical emergency. On this occasion, the emergency is a fire. Okay. So all I've done there is I have put in there some generic, very, very generic and broad descriptions of what you would do. If you tailor that to the fire, okay, so what you do in your specific facility, if there was a fire, what would you do for children, older people, and disabled people? Okay, I put down a few ideas there, but obviously they're very generic. If you just obviously incorporate them into the specific situation of a fire, or evacuating for a fire, then you'll be fine with those boxes. Okay, and I think we're coming up to the end here, guys. So what are your organisation's procedures for reporting emergencies? Again, you've got to see your line manager, but I would imagine it would be something along the lines of deal with the casualty the best you can, whilst also informing the emergency services or getting someone else who's next to you to inform the emergency services. But always contact with Joanne to make sure that the information you're putting down in this box is correct. Next up, you've got describe 2 problems that may occur when carrying out emergency procedures. So if you're carrying out emergency procedures, what could possibly go wrong? Okay, so you may have, for whatever reason, obstructed exits. Okay, I remember a few years ago, we did a fire drill from a pool area, and there was floats and actually inflatable equipment that was in front of fire exits. Now, obviously, that's extremely dangerous, and it was a problem that occurred when we were trying to carry out our emergency procedures. So that's one thing that can happen. Alarms not working. That's why it's really important to test your alarms, very often to make sure that the alarms are working. If they don't, people aren't aware that there's an emergency and therefore won't evacuate the building. And another problem that can occur during emergency procedures is that panic can start. You might get young children start to panic. Even adults as well might start to kind of run around, grab the bags, the coats, things like that. It's amazing what some people will do when they think there's a fire. And obviously, if that happens, there's more risk of injury there. People falling over, people slipping, especially in the gym or the pool area. So these are problems which can occur during emergency procedures. Why should problems that occur when carrying out emergency procedures be reported? Again, guys, I hope this is common sense to you. But it's to ensure that the problems don't occur if there's a real emergency procedure. So if you're doing your drills and there's a problem, then you can then put things into place to make sure that those problems don't ever occur again, and therefore don't occur when a real emergency procedure is actually taking place. And ultimately, that then ensures that the safety of all staff and customers is upheld. So if you do find when you're doing your procedure that a smoke alarm isn't working, or you do find that maybe a fire extinguisher is not fully charged, then you can make sure that you can report that to your line manager and they can rectify that before there is any real emergency procedure that could really cause a problem in. Next up, who would you report the problems to? Again, it's the same line really. It's the line manager or your duty manager, the people that are running the day-to-day. Basically running the day-to-day facility. Okay, and that appears to be that. Okay, so that is Unit 5 sorted. Again, guys, I just want to reiterate, everything I've put in the boxes is just guidance, okay? Do not copy word for word and do not just do bullet points in your boxes, okay? You need to write in full sentences, okay? If it asks for an explanation, it should be an explanation, okay? If it asks for a description, you should be painting a picture with words, okay? That's what a description is. An explanation is then going into more detail of, of why something is the way it is, basically. Okay, if you have any problems or you need to contact me, as I always say, please do as soon as possible. Contact me either via phone, phone call, text, or email. Okay, and I will get back to you straight away. Okay, guys. Also, make sure that the deadline for this is met. The deadline for my Accrington group will be Thursday, the 22nd of October, sorry, the 21st of October, and I will see you at 5 o'clock. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I'll see you on Thursday.